Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome back to Wellness Wednesdays. So we've had a bit of a break because I was doing the resiliency program that I'm hoping to bring to campus in the fall. So that'll be a really exciting opportunity for students to be a part of. But I've missed you also. It's good to be back. So today we have a guest speaker, Shannon Greene, who works with University Dining here at Clemson. So a little bit about Shannon. She's a Clemson alumni. She works with the culinary team to provide special dietary accommodations to students with food allergies and intolerances. She hosts a variety of events throughout the semester to promote health and wellness, including the Eat Well with Clemson Home program and healthy samplings. She also helps students gain an understanding of their unique nutritional needs. So, Shannon, thank you so much for coming today. Welcome. We're excited to have you and to learn about how we can eat in life-giving ways during this time of COVID. So I'll let you take it away.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So thank you for the introduction and thank you for having me on today. I have a lot to talk about, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pull up my PowerPoint. Okay, can everybody see that? Perfect. Okay. Okay, so first I want to talk about diet culture. Diet culture is a huge part of our society now, and it's ineffective, it's not sustainable, and it really causes harm to people. And it also causes deprivation because we all know that we want what we can't have, and we are driven by our unmet needs. So here's some body evidence to show that diet culture, and diets don't work. So the NIH consensus report shows that 1/3 to 2/3 of people will regain weight back within 1 year, and almost all people will regain weight within 5 years. So I'm going to go through a couple different studies, and they're all showing that diet is a consistent predictor of weight gain. And a lot of people will regain more weight than they lost in the first place. So I want to talk about the Minnesota starvation study. I think this is a super interesting study, so I really like this one. This was during World War II to study the effects of malnutrition. So they did this study because they were thinking that there would be a lot of food shortages. So they wanted to study the effects and see what would happen. So they took healthy men and put them on a semi-starvation diet for months and gave them around 1,600 calories per day, which we know really isn't that low. So they did have the physical results that you would expect, hair loss, but the really interesting part is the psychological results. So these men started collecting recipes, they started talking about food, what to eat, how to eat it, when to eat. Essentially, they became obsessed with food. And, remember, this is way before social media or the Food Network or anything like that. So it just shows that, those things that are part of our society now, shows what happened in this study. So during the refeeding process, when they started to eat normally again, a lot of the subjects experienced binge eating. So one of the subjects says he stuffs himself until he's bursting at the seams to the point of being nearly sick. And then another subject says he had so little control over the mechanisms of piling it in that he simply had to stay away from food after that. So here's another study. This was called the twin study. And so there were 2,000 sets of twins that were followed for 5 years. And they found that the twin that dieted gained more weight compared to the non-dieting twin. So they concluded from the study that it's now well established that more people engage in dieting, the more weight they'll gain in the long run. So eating disorders, this is a really scary thing, and the numbers show that 35% of dieters will progress into disordered eating. And I'll talk more about disordered eating in a few minutes, but an eating disorder is an extreme case of disordered eating. And dieting is the most important predictor of new eating disorders in adolescents. Um, Eating disorders have doubled in numbers from 2000 to 2006 to 2013, 2018. And that is huge, doubled. Those numbers have doubled. And part of it is increased social media use, particularly following, healthy food accounts. And that's been linked with an increase of disordered eating. So I want you guys to think about how dieting feels. This might not, apply to you personally, but and not everybody's going to have these different feelings, but I just want you to think about, how does fear feel in your body? How would it feel to be fearful of eating different foods? And how does hate feel in your body? How does guilt feel? And what does stress do to your body? Stress can do a lot of harmful things to your body. All of these feelings can. So I want to talk about weight stigma. This is an unrecognized agent for a negative impact on health. And weight stigma increases diabetes risk, cortisol levels, depression, anxiety, lower self-esteem, and most importantly, healthcare avoidance. So I think this little picture kind of sums that up perfectly. This person clearly comes in for a specific reason, and then the doctor's like, well, maybe you'll feel better if you lose some weight. That would prevent somebody from wanting to come back. So I want to talk about the spectrum of eating behavior. So this is kind of both sides of the spectrum. Intuitive eating, which I'm going to talk more about. The goal of intuitive eating really brings you to a place of food freedom, which is where everybody wants to feel. And then in the middle, disordered eating. And then on the other side, like I said, eating disorders are extreme cases of disordered eating. And these habits under the disordered eating, the negative body image, eating to regulate your emotions or your environment, compulsive eating, firm dietary rules, restricting your intake to control your weight. Unfortunately, some of these habits, I think, have become normalized, but these are not normal behaviors. And if you or anybody has any of these behaviors, I suggest seeking help now before that turns into an eating disorder. Okay, so here are the principles of intuitive eating. So intuitive eating is kind of summed up by these 10 principles. So rejecting that diet mentality, which I know is very hard to do because it has been, ingrained in us and been, like I said, a part of our society, our whole lives. So honor your hunger, make peace with food, challenge the food police, feel your fullness, discover the satisfaction factor. So here I like this example of, say you're going to your very favorite restaurant for dinner tonight. Would you eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on your way to the restaurant? No, you wouldn't want to do that, because then you wouldn't be as full and you wouldn't enjoy and be as satisfied with your meal. And it's important to find that satisfaction. So cope with your emotions without using food, and respect your body. Not everybody is going to look the same. It doesn't matter if two people do the same exercises and eat the same things. Everybody's still going to be different. And movement, feel the difference, especially when you're doing movement for enjoyment. And honor your health with gentle nutrition. And I'll talk more about that too. So what can we do out of all of that? What can we do? We can be more aware. So rely on your hunger and satiety cues, and eat based on instinct, emotion, and thought. So those three things kind of come together for intuitive eating. So of course we're going to eat based on instinct, like animals do, but we're humans, so we have the emotion and the thought that comes into that too. Emotion comes in where I have my very favorite restaurant, or maybe I haven't had a good day and I want this specific thing for dinner. That's okay. And our thought and our rationale is part of that too, because maybe I'm not feeling well one morning and I'm not super hungry, but I know that I need to eat, because if I don't, I'm not going to feel well later. So eat for physical reasons, not emotional reasons. So what I mean by that is, don't eat to fix your problems. Don't eat because you're bored. That goes back to listening to your hunger cues. Eat when you're hungry, and make peace with all foods. So awareness, focus on the inside of your body, not the outside, the weight, the measurements, and challenge those diet myths. And this is so important. Learn the value of eating to nourish your mind and your body, and to have energy and to feel good. So I want to do a quick activity with you guys. It's a heart rate activity, and this is all about, awareness of your body. And, how do you know that your bladder is full and you need to go to the bathroom? Or how do you know that you're hungry and you need to eat? So this heart rate activity is kind of nice, that I could do with clients that doesn't have anything to do with food. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pull out my phone and set a timer, and I'll tell you when to start and when to stop, but I want you to count your heart rate during that time. So I'll give you guys, a minute to relax, take a deep breath, and find your pulse, either on your wrist or right here. And you don't have to share this with anybody. Okay, go. Okay, stop. So either write down that number or just remember it. You can put it in your phone if you want to. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to set the timer again for the same amount of time, and I want you guys to perceive your heart rate. So I'll give you another few seconds to, just take a deep breath and try to feel your heartbeat in your body without feeling your pulse or anything like that. Okay, go. Okay, stop. So I want you to think about those two numbers. Were they similar? Were they totally different? And that kind of gives you just an idea of the awareness of inside of your body. And like I said, it's kind of a good first step to make you aware of your body that doesn't have anything to do with food. Okay, so more about intuitive eating. So this systematic review was done on 24 studies, and they found that their participants had greater body appreciation, greater life satisfaction, less disordered eating, and a greater motivation to exercise when the focus is on enjoyment. So let's focus on our well-being, not our weight. Weight is not a behavior, and we need to have dignity and respect for all bodies. And I like to say when I'm meeting with somebody, what can we add instead of what can we take away? Because you never want to deprive yourself of anything. So, say somebody drinks a lot of sodas, multiple sodas throughout the day. I would like to say, why don't we add some water in there? And the more we do that, the soda will fall off naturally. So have compassion. This is so important. There are no failures in this experience, only learning experiences. And think about when you're eating something, how will this food make me feel? I might want to eat a piece of cake for breakfast, but I know that if I do, I won't really feel well later if I don't have some protein. Um, and look at your eating experiences from a lens of curiosity rather than judgment. There's no room for judgment here, just curiosity. So I have an example of that. There's a client that I used to meet with, and she used to have a hard time trying to figure out how much food she needed. And they were at a celebration, and there was pie, and she had to cut her own piece of pie instead of it being like a portioned out dessert. And so she took a large piece of pie, ate way too much, felt bad later because she was just too full. And, we took that experience and, looked at it from that lens of curiosity. Why did that happen? And what can you do next time? There's no judgment there. Just what could you do next time? And you have a better idea of, how much your body needs and what a better portion for you would look like. So I have another example that I heard from another dietitian that was meeting with this 15-year-old boy, and he was constantly overeating. And they were trying to figure out if he was emotional eating. So she would say, what do you do when you're angry? And he would say, I'll go outside and shoot basketball. Or, what do you do when you're sad? And he would say, oh, I go hug my dog or talk to my mom. And he was insistent that he wasn't emotional eating. So she said, do you think your body needs this much food that you're eating? He thought about it and he was like, yeah, probably not. So why were you eating so much food? And he's like, but I would be sad if I stopped. It's so good. I would be sad. And I think we all have those feelings sometimes. It's the same feelings of you're on a really fun vacation and you don't want to go back to work, or you're at the end of a really good book and you don't want it to be over. But, those aren't very heavy feelings. And if you just get up and go do something else or go for a walk, you're going to forget about that, and that sadness goes away. So I think that that's important to remember. Okay, so a few takeaways here. You are not a failure at dieting. It's the system that is a failure. Follow body positive social media. I think this is really important. Go follow some registered dietitians. And give yourself unconditional permission to eat. All foods are equivalent. And say no to those thoughts in your head that declare your eating as good or bad. And remember that food won't fix any feelings or problems, and it's important to find other ways to comfort yourself. And focus on those flexible, healthy habits that you can add to your life rather than taking away and restricting things. Okay, so do you guys, if you guys have any questions that you don't want to share on here, you can contact me. I am a free resource to all students, so if anybody wants to talk to me about any, individual needs, I'd be happy to set up an appointment with you. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon.
Yeah,
I
of
really appreciate
course.
that. Was a great overview. Yeah, I really appreciated, especially in the beginning, some of the studies that you had mentioned, specifically the Minnesota starvation study, and just kind of the idea that, those men who, in our culture, especially the diet culture, it's kind of, it's, I guess, more directed towards women, although men are now starting to fall into that as well. But, with that
Mhm.
group, it was just men, World War II. And, they already had that obsession with food, the psychological ramifications of starving. So I just think that's so important, because, growing up in a household with, a parent who did yo-yo dieting a lot, it's just, a lot of this was very like personal, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was really great. So I did want to open up the floor for questions. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask Shannon. But while people are thinking of questions, I did kind of have just one that I was thinking of. So I'm really interested in health and nutrition. This is a story for a different time, but I actually had anorexia nervosa for several years as a teen into college, and part of that was also orthorexia. And so I didn't know, kind of that obsession with clean eating and that kind of thing. And I think that something you had mentioned was the social media piece, and how that can really exasperate people's eating behaviors to kind of, fall into disorder eating. So my question, I think, is, working with college students, do you see kind of a widespread orthorexia, or do you think it's more few and far between? It's not the norm. I'm just kind of curious what you see.
Yeah, I would kind of say both. And sometimes I'll see, characteristics of it, and I don't think that the student even realizes.
Mm,
And a lot of times, like I said previously, if you're having any of those feelings, that's when you want to seek help before it turns into an eating disorder. So I'll meet with people, and they'll think, no, I don't have an eating disorder. I don't really need help with this. And that's where I'll come in and say, no, I think this is where we need to catch it before it goes even further. So
right,
then I will refer them to, meeting with somebody at Redfern,
right,
because it's so important to have that psychological, that counseling aspect of it too.
right. Yeah.
So, to answer your question more, I would say, I mean, yes, I feel like I do see that a lot, but a lot of times I don't think that the student realizes that they're restricting themselves that much.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. And and so this is more of a comment than a question, but I also just really appreciated, that the idea of having compassion towards ourselves, because I think there's so much, from what I see, there's so much shame wrapped up in eating. Like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
eating good, I'm eating bad. It's like food's not a moral issue, eating's not a moral issue. So it's interesting that the diet culture really perpetuates all of these type of shaming type words on them and everything. So I really appreciated you kind of calling that out to say, hey, no, food's just there to enjoy and to fuel us, and that's kind of it. So I really appreciated that aspect.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, we are taught that all of these thoughts and behaviors are normal. And, we have to get away from that because those aren't healthy behaviors or thoughts to have about ourselves.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Well, Shannon, thank you again so much for coming today. We really appreciate it. And you provided everyone with your email address. So again, if folks have questions for Shannon, feel free to email her. This recording will be on our website. I can again send out the link to the previous recordings now. We finally have it on our website, which I'm really excited about. So you can feel free to view it there, to share it with your friends. And then next week we'll resume back here for Wellness Wednesdays. So again, Shannon, thank you so much for your time and for coming to speak today.
Thank you.
Great. Bye, everybody.